The deaths of Oscar-winning actor Gene Hackman and his wife in Los Angeles, along with new information about a call she may have made before she died. When Hollywood great Gene Hackman died, the world lost a true movie icon. What happened in the 24 hours leading up to his death shocked many, but his wife made a strange phone call that even doctors couldn't explain. Gene Hackman was the most renowned actor of his time, and his performances launched a career that lasted decades. Hackman was very private. He left Hollywood in the early 2000s and chose to live a simple life with his wife Betsy Arakawa. He avoided the limelight and gave very few interviews, even when he was very old. He liked staying out of the limelight, but after his death, one call changed everything. What was it about? The answer is more shocking than you might think. Gene Hackman was born on January 30, 1930 in San Bernardino, California. He was raised by his parents, Anna and Eugene Hackman, and his younger brother Anna, Gene's mother, was born in Sarnia, Ontario, Canada. The family moved around a lot before settling down in Danville, Illinois, where they lived with Anna's mother. Gene's father worked as a printing press operator for the Commercial News, a local newspaper, since he was a child. Gene has always been interested in acting. At age 10, he decided he wanted to be an actor. But Gene's childhood wasn't easy. When he was 13, his parents divorced, and soon after, his father left the family. This was a sad time for Gene, but Gene was restless as a teenager. He briefly attended Storm Lake High School, but quit home when he was 16 to get away from the problems at home. He lied about his age and joined the U.S. Marine Corps, where he served as a field radio operator in China, Hawaii, and Japan for 4.5 years. His time in the Marines taught him discipline and toughness that would help him in his acting career after he got out of the military in 1951. Moved to New York City and worked different jobs to make ends meet. Tragically, his mother accidentally started a fire while smoking and died in 1962. Despite all of these problems, Gene stayed focused on his goals. He briefly attended the University of Illinois under the GI Bill to study journalism and television production, but did not finish his degree. Instead, he went back to California and focused on acting. In 1956, he joined the Pasadena Playhouse, which was the first step toward a career as an actor. Playhouse in California, where he met another struggling actor named Dustin Hoffman. The two quickly became friends, but their classmate Atez didn't exactly welcome them. Hackman and Hoffman were voted the least likely to succeed. Gene's problems didn't end when he moved to New York City. Hoffman and another would-be actor, Robert Duvall, were close friends and often roomed together in pursuit of their Hollywood dreams. Gene made a living by doing a variety of odd jobs, including as a chef at Howard Johnson's restaurant. He was recognized by an old teacher from the Pasadena Playhouse who told him he would never make it. Even a Marine officer had put him down when he was working as a doorman, but Gann didn't let these comments stop him. He said, "I wasn't going to let those people bring me down. It became a challenge. I had to prove them wrong." Gann then started getting small roles on TV and in movies, including roles in Route 66, Naked City, and The Defenders and the United States Steel Hour. His stage career was also picking up speed with roles in off-Broadway shows like The Saintliness of Marjorie Kempe, 1959, and Come to the Palace of Sin, 1964, when he was in the Broadway production Any Wednesday, which was a huge hit. This led to more roles in movies, starting with Lilith, 1964, in which he shared the screen with Gene Seberg and Warren Beatty. In 1967, Gene had a short-term setback when he was hired to play Mr. Director Mike Nichols thought Gene was too young for the part of Robinson in The Graduate and cast Murray Hamilton instead. But Gene's luck changed when he was hired to play Buck Barrow in Bonnie and Clyde. His performance was so intense that he was nominated for an Academy Award for Best Supporting Actor. After this success, he went on to work on Broadway, but not always with the same level of success. His play The Natural Look closed after only one performance, but Gene kept making movies. In 1969, he played an astronaut in Maroon and a ski coach in Downhill Racer. Interestingly, Gene was about to be cast as Mike Brady in The Brady Bunch, but his agent told him to turn down the part in favor of Bigger and Better Things. That was the right thing to do because bigger and better things were on the way. Despite all the setbacks and rejections, Gene Hackman never gave up. He loved acting and wouldn't listen to anyone who said he would never become an actor, and he did become one. Gene Hackman's career took off in the 1977s, with roles in iconic movies like The French Connection, Superman, Unforgiven, and The Royal Tenenbaums. He received critical acclaim and became one of Hollywood's top actors. In 1970, he was nominated for his second Academy Award for Best Supporting Actor for I Never Sing for My Father, in which he played a son who was having trouble connecting with his emotionally distant father, Melvin Douglas. Roger Ebert said that Hackman and Douglas seemed to feel so natural together on screen that it didn't even seem like acting. It felt real. The next movie that made Hackman a star was The French Connection, 1971, in which he played the tough New York police detective Poe Doyle. It was an unforgettable performance that earned him his first Academy Award for Best Actor. Critics praised how convincing he was in the role, bringing out the tough and determined attitude of a cop on the hunt for criminals. Was in Doctors' Wives, 1971, The Hunting Party, 1971, and Thrill-Loaded Prime Cut, 1972. He was also in The Poseidon Adventure, a ship-sinking disaster movie that was a huge hit. One of his favorites was Scarecrow, 1973, in which he played a drifter opposite Al Pacino and won the most prestigious award at the Cannes Film Festival. Hackman then took on the role of a paranoid surveillance specialist in The Conversation, 1974, directed by Francis Ford Coppola. It was one of his best roles, and the movie was a huge hit. Hackman showed his comedic skills in a short but funny role as a blind man in Young Frankenstein, 1974. In Superman, 1978, he played the evil but smooth Lex Luthor with humor and wit. He played Luthor again in Superman 2, 1980, and again in Superman 4, The Quest for Peace, 1987. Hackman was one of the most versatile actors of his time because he could balance action, comedy, and drama. He joined forces with Daniel Lenihan after stepping away from the spotlight of Hollywood lights. Gene Hackman started a new career as a novelist, using his storytelling skills for literature. He teamed up with his longtime friend and underwater archaeologist, Daniel Lenihan, to write a series of historical fiction novels that showed he could write better than an actor. Their first book together, Wake of the Pyrrho Star, 1999, is an exciting sea adventure set in the 19th century that includes shipwrecks and high seas adventures. It was the start of Hackman's literary career. In 2004, Hackman and Lenihan published Justice for None, a suspenseful novel set in the Great Depression. The book is about a murder plot in a small Illinois community, which is a lot like Hackman's own life growing up in that kind of place. This book not only showed how good Hackman was as a storyteller, but it also showed how close he was to his roots. Their third work together, Escape from Andersonville, 2008, takes readers on a journey through. The story takes place during the terrible American Civil War and is about a brave prison break that shows how strong and brave the characters are. This book solidified Hackman's reputation as a skilled storyteller who can bring history to life. Hackman also wrote Payback at Morning Peak in 2011, a Western novel that looks at love and revenge in the harsh Western landscape. This book shows how good Hackman is at making stories interesting on his own. His most recent book, Pursuit, was about a man who goes on a mission. 2013 is a thrilling police thriller that keeps readers on the edge of their seats. This book shows Hackman's versatility and how easily he can switch from acting to writing, establishing his credentials as a literary writer. In addition to writing books, Hackman lent his famous voice to a number of documentaries. In 2007, he narrated NFL films like America's Game and Super Bowl Champion Series, bringing football history to life in the stories of legends. Through his work with the U.S. Marine Corps, he narrated The Unknown Flag, Raiser of IEMA, 2016, a documentary that shows new details about the famous World War II photo. He continued this collaboration by narrating We the Marines, a 2017 film that gives viewers a personal look into the lives of Marine Corps recruits. Hackman's career after acting shows how hard he works at telling stories, whether on paper or through his moving narration. His work with Lenihan and his own projects have left a permanent mark on the literary world, showing a depth that goes far. Hackman's marriages and personal life have been just as troubled as his famous Hollywood life. In 1956, he married Faye Maltz, and the two had 3 children together, Christopher, Elizabeth, and Leslie. Hackman's busy acting schedule meant that he had to travel a lot for movies, so he was away from home most of the time, even after being together for decades. He and Faye got divorced in 1986 after 30 years of marriage, and a few years later, Hackman found love again, before they got married on December 1, 1991. Hackman and classical pianist Betsy Herrera had been dating for 7 years. The couple made Santa Fe, New Mexico their home, where they designed and built a beautiful home that was even featured in Architectural Digest in 1990. Their home stood on a 12-acre hilltop overlooking some of the most beautiful mountains in the area. Hackman and Arawa had a private life outside of Hollywood and were married for decades. Outside of Hollywood, Hackman was very interested in politics and was an outspoken Democrat. He was so proud of his political views that he was put on President Richard Nixon's notable enemies list. But he also had a lot of respect for Republican President Ronald Reagan and spoke highly of him. Hackman was also a huge racing fan. In the late 1970s, he started racing in the Sports Car Club of America in a fast and maneuverable Formula Ford and even won the Long Beach Toyota Pro Celebrity Race. In 1980, he won a race that showed he was good at more than just acting. His love of racing didn't end there. He went on to compete in the difficult 24 Hours of Daytona endurance race in 1983 with Dan Gurn's Toyota team. Another thing Hackman liked was football. He was a huge Jacksonville Jaguars fan and went to their games all the time. He was friends with former Jaguar coach Jack Del Rio from when Del Rio played college football at the University of Southern California. Hackman loved sports and was a die-hard fan of the team. He was also very interested in home design and architecture. By 1990, he had designed and built 10 homes, 2 of which were featured in Architectural Digest. He liked restoring and designing houses, but said that once a project was finished, he was ready to start the next one. Even though he was getting older, Hackman was always on the go. He was a keen cyclist and continued riding well into his 90s in 2012, but while cycling in the Florida Keys, he was hit by a pickup truck. At first, it was said that he had serious head injuries, but later his publicist said that he had only minor bruises. The accident didn't stop him from staying active, and he continued to enjoy cycling for many more years. Hackman also had some health problems. In 1990, he had an angioplasty, which opens blocked arteries and improves circulation. Even though he was in his advanced years, he was still in a good mood and lived on his own terms. In late 2022, he was seen at an event in Santa Fe, and in March 2024, he was seen out in public again. Even though he has mostly disappeared from view, his contributions to Hollywood and the many other activities he enjoyed besides acting are still remembered and honored. In his last few months, Gene Hackman's health seemed to be getting worse. Neighbors in Santa Fe, New Mexico noticed that he and his wife, Betsy Arakawa, had stopped talking to friends and family, which was a concerning sign. Arakawa was last seen at a CVS pharmacy on February 11, 2025. She was with her partner, and they had been living a quiet, private life together for a long time. At 5:15 p.m., she returned to their home in a gated neighborhood. The next day, she called a doctor's office in Santa Fe to make an appointment for the afternoon, but she didn't show up. Sadly, she died soon after at their house from Harris pulmonary syndrome, an unusual and dangerous illness. Hackman, who had Alzheimer's, didn't call. Officials later thought that because of his condition, he might not have fully realized what had happened to his wife for a few days. He stayed in the house by himself with their dogs on February 18th. Hackman's pacemaker detected an irregular heart rate, and he died of advanced heart disease that was made worse by his Alzheimer's and kidney disease. Their bodies were not found until February 26th, when a maintenance worker, worried that he had not seen them, rang the doorbell when he got a message. When he called security for help and got no answer, they looked in a window and saw the terrible scene inside. They immediately called the police. When they went inside, they found Araki and Hackman dead, along with one of the 3 dogs that were with them. 2 of the other dogs were still alive, but there were no signs of foul play. The case was taken seriously by investigators. The situation was strange enough that they wanted to be careful about carbon monoxide poisoning. It was ruled out right away as a cause of death, and after a formal investigation, the authorities announced the causes of death at a press conference on March 7th, Dr. Martin Julie. So Hackman's family later asked the courts to keep photos and videos taken during the investigation, including police body camera footage, from being made public because they want to protect the couple's privacy and dignity as they die. Hackman wrote a will in 1995, leaving everything to Arakawa, but Arakawa's will had a clause that said, there was a clause in their will that said if they both died within 90 days of each other, their estate would go to charity. Because of this, their money is likely to be given to different charities. Gene Hackman had a great life. He was one of Hollywood's most famous actors and now lived a peaceful retirement in Santa Fe. The deaths of Hackman and his wife were tragic and marked the end of their story. His work in movies will never be forgotten, but his physical presence will always be remembered with the memories of what was. In a new twist, the deaths of actor Gene Hackman and his wife Betsy Arawa became even more mysterious. Dr. Josiah Child, who runs Cloudberry Health in Santa Fe, New Mexico, said that Betsy called his clinic on February 12, 2025, one day after it was reported that she had died. According to Dr. Child, Betsy had called earlier to make an appointment for Jean for an echocardiogram. She had originally scheduled the appointment for February 12, but had to change it to February 10 due to Jean's illness. Dr. Child was surprised when Betsy called again on February 12th, saying she had some congestion and wanted to see him. This time, she didn't have any symptoms of acute respiratory distress like shortness of breath, chest pain, or fever. An appointment was made for the afternoon, but Betsy never showed up. These new details go against the first evidence presented by the Santa Fe County Sheriff's Office, which said that Betsy had died on February 11th from Harris pulmonary syndrome, a highly congenital lung disease. Later, the sheriff's office confirmed that Betsy had made several calls to Cloudberry Health on February 12th, which meant that more research had to be done into the exact times of the calls. The Hackman family's legal actions have made things even more complicated. They have obtained a temporary restraining order to stop the release of autopsy reports and any images or videos related to the investigation. This move is seen as very rare in New Mexico, where exclusions of this kind are not common. Gene Hackman, who had advanced Alzheimer's disease, may not have noticed that his wife had died. He died around February 18 from hypertensive atherosclerosis, cardiovascular disease, which made things more complicated. Their bodies and the bodies of one of their 3 dogs that had starved to death were found on February 26th. The other 2 dogs were found alive and in pain. Different reports of Betsy's death date have been found. The official report said she died on February 11, but Dr. Child's testimony showed that she was still alive on February 12. Also, Betsy's call to the clinic on February 12 was about her mild congestion, which wasn't serious enough to set off immediate alarms. This contradiction has made people look more closely at the initial results and the need for a more thorough investigation. The Hackman family's decision to stop the release of autopsy reports and their support legal experts say that this kind of action is uncommon and could mean that someone wants to keep things quiet or have control over sensitive information. The restraining order temporarily stops the release of pictures, videos, and detailed reports about the deaths until further litigation is completed. As investigations continue, doctors are still confused about how Betsy's condition suddenly appeared. Harris pulmonary syndrome usually causes flu-like symptoms. That the speed with which Betsy's condition got worse and the fact that she wasn't showing any severe symptoms at her last known contact have led to questions about the accuracy of the original diagnosis. In short, the news about the deaths of Gene Hackman and Betsy Araki raised important questions about the timeline and circumstances of their deaths. Reports that differ on legal actions taken and medical oddities highlight the need for an in-depth investigation. When the news of Gene Hackman's death spread, Hollywood and the movie business came together to honor the great actor. Most of his friends, fellow actors, and directors paid rich tributes, calling him one of the all-time greats. Clint Eastwood, who co-starred with Hackman in Unforgiven, 1992, and Absolute Power, 1997, wrote that Hackman was an actor who never hit the wrong note. Eastwood said Hackman had a natural intensity and instinct that made him a great actor. Francis Ford, who directed Hackman in Conversation, 1974, praised his talent in great detail. Ford said that Hackman was not only a good actor, but also inspiring and truly brilliant in every role he played. Ford mourned his death, but also celebrated all that Hackman had done for the film industry. Even Prince William praised Hackman, calling him a true genius of film who brought each character to life with unforgettable energy. During the 97th Academy Awards, Morgan Freeman took the time to honor Hackman's life. He talked about how generous Hackman was as an actor, always doing his best for the people he worked with. Freeman said that everyone who had a scene with Hackman learned something from him, and that he would be remembered for so much more than just his amazing work. Other stars, including Dustin Hoffman, Glenn Close, Tom Hanks, Viola Davis, and Bill Murray, also spoke of their respect and sadness. Many famous actors and actresses, including Alec Baldwin, Barbara Strand, Antonio Banderas, Josh Brolin, Ben Stiller, George T., and Jennifer Love Hewitt, paid tribute to the late actor. Film writer Peter Bradshaw of The Guardian said Hackman's death marked the end of an era, especially the golden age of American New Wave films. He called Hackman a real star who controlled every scene he was in with his unique presence, which was a mix of intelligence and charm. Hackman was tough and cool at the same time, which gave his performances a depth that was hard to find. One audience member said, "The death of Gene Hackman was a great loss to Hollywood, but his story will never be forgotten." Hackman's performances in movies like The French Connection, Unforgiven, and The Royal Tenenbaums left an indelible mark on the world of cinema. Even after he stopped acting, his legacy didn't change. His heritage will live on. Gene Hackman had an amazing life, full of amazing accomplishments, deep personal relationships, and a few secrets. In his later years, he was not only an actor but a Hollywood icon whose performances changed the face of cinema forever. From his unforgettable roles in The French Connection and Forgiveness to his mastery of completely disappearing into every character, Hackman was the kind of actor that people would talk about for years to come. Hackman was a great actor who made every scene feel real. His career was as colorful as his life. He was married to Faye Maltz for 30 years and had 3 children with her. Later, he met Betsy Arakawa, a classically trained pianist, and the two were together for decades in their secluded Santa Fe home. Hackman loved architecture, racing, and even bicycling well into his 90s. He lived life to the fullest, racing sports cars and designing beautiful homes. But near the end of his life, things took a tragic turn when his health started to get worse, and he died. Betsy pulled away from family and friends, and she died of a rare virus. Because Hackman's Alzheimer's was advanced, he may not have fully understood what was going on. His own death only days later added to the tragedy. When their bodies were found, people were left guessing what their last moments must have been like. There was a lot of speculation, and in a strange turn of events, Betsy may have even called after being declared dead. The world came together to celebrate. Celebrities like Clint Eastwood, Morgan Freeman, and Francis Ford praised Hackman's acting and called him one of the best actors of all time. Even Prince William acknowledged Hackman's impact on film. Hackman's death really did end an era. He was the last of a dying breed. From Hollywood's great era, one of those superstars who commanded the screen without ever trying that hard, a master of becoming believable in what he played as a tough-talking cop or a cold-hearted killer. From a cold-blooded killer to a loving husband and father, his acting skills and the respect of his fellow actors will ensure that he is always remembered. Hollywood lost a legend, but the world will benefit from his contributions for generations to come. What do you think about the strange circumstances of his death? Let us know in the comments. If you liked this video, don't forget to like and subscribe to our channel for more in-depth looks into Hollywood's biggest stories. A new movie, thanks for watching, and see you in the next one.